allegiances and they had agreements with Kisra, the ruler or the emperor of the Persians, treaties of non-aggression. Therefore, they're not going to have any aggression against the Prophet against Kisra. They're not going to support anyone who causes any trouble or any rebellion or any disobedience to that ruler Kisra. And then to the north, we had another buffer state, which is Ghassan, the tribe of Ghassan, which is an Arab tribe that had its allegiance to the Romans. They were mostly Christians. So that's to the extreme north. And then we have to the extreme south, also a satellite of the Persian Empire. At the beginning of Islam, before the start of Islam, there was some period of give and take between the Romans and the Persians. Some of the Roman dynasties would occupy Yemen, and then it would be the Persian dynasties who would defeat them and reoccupy Yemen, and so on. So it kept going back and forth. And there were satellites of both the Romans and the Persians in Yemen. But at that time, at that particular time, Yemen was ruled by a viceroy or a governor who was pledging his allegiance to Kisra. And that viceroy or that governor, his name was Badan. So the Prophet ﷺ started thinking about basically inviting these different tribes. When they came for Hajj, he wanted to invite them to Islam. Also, there was another tribe, Bani Amr ibn Sa'sa'a, which is one of the largest tribes in Arabia, that was in what would be now the heart of the desert of Arabia in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, basically the area of Riyadh and all of this area, and that was called Al-Yamama. So basically that was another strong tribe, and the Prophet ﷺ proposed Islam to all of these different tribes. The responses were varied. So initially when the Prophet ﷺ proposed Islam to the Bani Shayban, who were adjacent to Kisra, to the Persians, they told the Prophet ﷺ, we like what you're saying, and we would be willing to take you and host you in our land on one condition. We cannot break our treaty or our alliance with Kisra. So you can preach your call to Islam within our land on the western side of the body of water or of the river, but not cross that river to the eastern side, which would be Kisra's land, proper Faris. And the Prophet ﷺ listened to them, and they were very polite in their address of the Prophet ﷺ. And he told them, you have been fair enough and you have clarified your position, but unfortunately, Islam can only be taken by someone who would take it from all of its aspects without any limitations on time, without any limitation on geography. So if you want to take me, allowing me to preach Islam wherever I go, I would go with you. If not, then thank you very much, you're not ready yet. And then they inquired from the Prophet ﷺ, so you're claiming that you are a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one and only. And the Prophet ﷺ said, indeed. And the Prophet ﷺ reminded them that every now and then they have some confrontations themselves, the Arabs of Iraq, with Persia. And the Prophet ﷺ told them that someday, what if you defeat the Persians? What if you conquer them in their own land? Would you be willing at that time to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any partners, without any associates? And they said, yes, if that happens, we would be willing to do that. Now, fast forward a few years, there was one battle that took place between the Arabs of Iraq or that buffer area and the Persians, due to a misunderstanding between their leader and the Kisra, the emperor of the Persians, who wanted to kill him. But basically the Arabs had a revolt against this great empire of Persia in a place called Dhiqar, which is again in what is now Iraq. And for the first time ever, they managed to defeat them. There's a very nice anecdote here that the leader of the Bani Shayban at that time, that tribe from Iraq, the leader remembered the words that the Prophet ﷺ had told them. Remember that the Prophet ﷺ told them someday you are going to fight the Persians and you're going to defeat them. So the men asked, what was the name of this person who told us that this would happen? And they said his name was Muhammad. He said, well, let's make that the slogan of our campaign this time. So they used to marshal the armies around the banner, around the flag, using some code words. So for example, for the Muslims in the Battle of Badr, it was Ahadun Ahad. And in other battles, it would be Ya Mansur Amit. So there would be a call of war, basically to gather the army around the flag. So that army of Bani Shayban, in their confrontation with the Persians, they made their call to fight Muhammad. So whenever they said Muhammad, everyone would gather around the flag and they would attack the enemy. At that time, they were still non-believers. Later on, the Prophet ﷺ would remember that day and say, Bi nusiru. They were victorious on that day due to the blessing of uttering my name and making it the slogan of their campaign against the Persians. But what's important right now is that these Persians refused to take the Prophet ﷺ or gave him a conditional acceptance, which the Prophet ﷺ could not accept. And here we have something very important to talk about, because again, remember the Prophet ﷺ is rejected in Mecca. There were some attempts to kill him. Thaqif, the other major tribe, has rejected the Prophet ﷺ. So basically Arabia, the heart of Arabia around Mecca, has rejected the Prophet ﷺ. He could have accepted the compromise, but to tell us, to show us the example, the Prophet ﷺ did not accept any compromise at that time, because if he did, later on people would say, well, that's not our agreement. Now we want to cross that river to preach Islam in the Persian lands. That was not our agreement, so we cannot protect you. So the Prophet ﷺ wanted to be clear from the very first day. And then there was another tribe, Banu Hanifa. And again, these are the people of Al-Yamama. And Banu Hanifa told the Prophet ﷺ, well, we like what you're saying. We are willing to take you and to protect you in our lands on one condition. Again, the problem is the condition. The condition is that after you die, we would be in charge. And the Prophet ﷺ told them, that's not in my hands. This is an affair of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give the rule to whomever he wants. So thank you for making your position clear, but I cannot accept this compromise either. So that was the second tribe. And we're talking here about major tribes. Before the Prophet ﷺ would propose Islam to them, he would ask them about their strength. He would ask them about their history in war. He would ask them about their neighbors and about the skirmishes that used to take place between them and their neighbors who used to be victorious, and so on. And then the third tribe, another very big tribe, Bani Amr ibn Sa'sa'. And basically, initially, they liked what the Prophet ﷺ said, and they wanted to take the Prophet ﷺ with them, until they met with their leader, who was not attending that meeting with the Prophet ﷺ. And that was an evil man. His name was Bayhara ibn Firas. So when he came back from where he was and he found his people sitting with the Prophet ﷺ, he asked them, who is this? Why are you sitting with him? And they told him, this is a man who claims to be a messenger from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we gave him our word that we're going to take him to our land to protect him and to allow him to preach his call. And that's going to be his base. He's going to come with us. He said, no, you didn't seek my advice. I did not authorize you to do that. So you want to declare enmity against all the Arabs, against someone that you've met for the first time? That would not be wise. And he spoke in a very nasty way, offensive way, insulting way to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about to leave, just to add insult to injury, that evil man kicked the legs of the camel of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the camel jolted, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fell from the back of the camel. And some of the people of that Bayhara ibn Firas started making fun of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there was a Muslim woman who was among this tribe who did not declare her Islam. So she called her son and she said, do you accept to treat a guest this way? This is not an honorable way to treat a guest. and basically 3 people fighting against another 3 of the allies of Bayhara. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua for those who supported him and make dua against those who attacked him ﷺ. The 3 people who supported the Prophet ﷺ ended up embracing Islam, and the 3 people who attacked the Prophet ﷺ ended up dying as non-believers. So far, it doesn't seem that the attempts of the Prophet ﷺ are working, at least this year. Here we're talking about the 10th year of the Ba'tha of the Prophet ﷺ. In a farther land to the north, the city of Yathrib, or the town of Yathrib, which is an oasis in the middle of the desert to the north of Mecca al-Mukarramah, there has been a war taking place between the 2 major tribes inhabiting Yathrib. And these 2 tribes were Al-Aws, who were smaller in number, and Al-Khazraj, who were larger in number. And that war has been taking place over an extended period of time, and it was a very bloody war. Many of the leaders of both tribes were killed in this war. Now, some of the people from Al-Aws who had some relatives in Mecca, they came to Mecca to seek an alliance with Quraysh to support them in their fight against Al-Khazraj. So 6 of these people basically were sitting trying to find who are the leaders of Quraysh that they're going to talk to, when the Prophet ﷺ approached them and he asked them, "Where are you from?" And they said, "We are from Yathrib." So the Prophet ﷺ asked, "Amin Mawali Yahud, are you the ones who have alliances with the different tribes of Bani Israel, the Jewish tribes in Al-Madinah, in Yathrib?" And they said, "Yes." So he ﷺ asked them, "And what brought you here?" They said, "Well, we came to seek an alliance with Quraysh against our cousins from the other tribe, Al-Khazraj, because they have massacred us and we need support to fight them." So the Prophet ﷺ told them, "Shouldn't I tell you about something even better than that?" And they said, "Well, let's hear." So the Prophet ﷺ proposed Islam to them. Now, some back history here is that there has always been some enmities and some friction between not only Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj, but also with their Jewish allies. So from time to time, since the Bani Israel, the Jewish tribes in Yathrib, were responsible for trade, they were wealthy traders, they were wealthy weapons makers, and they were wealthy financiers. So basically each tribe that wanted to get weapons or wanted to get money to support and to fund its wars against the other tribe, they used to borrow this from the Jewish tribes, their allies, Bani Qaynuqa', Bani Nadir, and Bani Qurayza, primarily. But from time to time, they would have a disagreement on the terms of repayment, because they would borrow this money with a very high usury or riba. So when it was time to return it, they usually used to be a dispute between the borrowers and the lenders. And sometimes that dispute got very nasty, to the threat of war. And these Jewish tribes used to tell the Arabs, the pagans of Yathrib, "Wait, it's about time." When they wanted to threaten them, they used to say, "It's about time for the last prophet to appear here in Arabia, and he's going to come to us. We find it in our books that he's going to migrate to us. We are going to believe in him, we're going to support him, and we're going to lead a campaign against you, and we're going to eradicate you, and we're going to be the leaders of Yathrib." That's what the Jewish tribes were telling both Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj. So these 6 individuals, when the Prophet ﷺ said that he is the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that rang a bell, basically what the Jews of Bani Qurayza, Bani Qaynuqa', and Bani Nadir have been threatening them. So they immediately said, "This is the one that we have been hearing about. Let us rush to him, embrace him, follow him, and accept him first before the Jews do whatever they have been threatening us to do." And that was a factor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to expedite the acceptance of these 6 individuals of Islam. Now, these 6 individuals, again, they are very small in number. They're not representative of the whole community of Yathrib. So they told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Allow us to invite our families and our people, our tribes, to Islam, and let's set an appointment next year. Next year, we're going to meet here same time. So the following year, now we're talking about the 11th year of the Ba'tha of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the 11th year, these 6 individuals came back, but not as 6. They came back as 12 leaders. 12 leaders, and for the first time, the interesting thing is that these 12 leaders included leaders from both tribes, Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj. So even the people of Al-Aws who were seeking alliance against Al-Khazraj, they invited them to Islam, and some of them accepted Islam even without seeing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But based on what they heard about him and based on what they heard from their neighbors, the Jews of Yathrib. So these 12 came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam met with them this time. And now we're starting to talk about hosting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam if he migrates to them in Yathrib. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made with them a covenant, and that covenant was called Bay'atul Aqaba Al-Ula. Bay'atul Aqaba Al-Ula, the first covenant of Al-Aqaba. Al-Aqaba is a place where they used to meet not too far from the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Mecca, within the area of Al-Hajj. So the terms of that agreement were that if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrates to them, they're going to defend him and they're going to protect him. But it was a very limited protection because, again, they did not get the full picture yet. And the Prophet ﷺ did not want to scare them about what they're going to face from the enmity of all the other Arab tribes of the Arabian Peninsula when they host the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ knows now that Bani Hanifa rejected him, Bani Shayban rejected him, Taqif rejected him, Bani Amr ibn Sasa rejected him. So now this could be a place where he can find a safe haven. However, if they accept him, they declare their enmity to all of these tribes that had rejected the Prophet ﷺ, starting with Quraysh. So the agreement with them in Bay'at al-Aqaba al-Ula was basically not to kill their children, not to steal, not to lie, not to commit adultery, which is basically the same terms of agreement that we find in Surah Al-Mumtahina about later on. This would be revealed later on, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet ﷺ that if the women believers come to make a pledge to you, فَبَايِعْهُنَّ, what are the terms of this pledge or this covenant? That they would not associate anything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَلَّا يُشْرِكْنَ بِاللَّهِ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَسْرِقْنَ وَلَا يَزْنِينَ وَلَا يَأْتِينَ بِبُهْتَانٍ يَفْتَرِينَهُ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِنَّ وَأَرْجُلِهِنَّ وَلَا يَعْصِينَكَ فِي مَعْرُوفٍ. So they should not associate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They should not steal, they should not kill their children, they should not commit adultery, and they should not disobey the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were the very limited terms of the first covenant of Al-Aqaba. And as you can see, it's all behavioral. It's all self-reflecting. So if someone does not lie, if someone does not steal, if someone does not commit adultery, if someone does not associate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of these are individual issues and not societal issues. But the society is going to improve if all the individuals follow these guidelines. And now this time they're asking the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for a favor. They told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not everyone could come with us from Yathrib to Hajj this year. Would you be kind enough to send with us a teacher to teach us about Islam? If we have someone who knows about Islam among us, Islam can spread very quickly and very easily through Medina. And here the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam selects the first ambassador of Islam, and that was Sayyidina Mus'ab ibn Umayr radiallahu anhu. He was knowledgeable about Islam. He was from a prominent family. He was someone who understood Islam in its entirety. He was someone who was excited about delivering the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and being the representative of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was someone who was quite eloquent, who could summarize big meanings in very few words. And all of these are conditions of ambassadorship. If you're going to send a representative, these are some of the minimum requirements or qualifications for that ambassador. And Sayyidina Mus'ab radiallahu anhu embodied all of these different elements of ambassadorship. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent him with these 12 delegates, and they set another appointment. See you, same place, next year during the time of Hajj. So Sayyidina Mus'ab radiallahu anhu went to Yathrib with them. He basically worked tirelessly day and night with the guidance of some of their leaders to tell him who to talk to and who not to talk to, who would be willing to accept Islam easily, who would be willing to support the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is strong enough and powerful enough in their tribes to provide this protection for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are many stories about that that you can hear, inshallah, in the full videos in islamicsource.org. So basically, 1 year later, in the 12th year of the Ba'tha of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now these 12 delegates who met with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came back as promised. So look at the gradual increase. We're talking about the year 10, 6, the year 11, 12, and now we are at the year 12. 72 men and 2 women. For the first time, we see also women representatives coming from Yathrib to meet with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at Makkah al-Mukarram. So we have a 6-fold. So the increase was 100% in the first year, and then it was 600% in the second year. And again, that was with the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and due to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then to the hard work of Sayyidina Mus'ab radiallahu anhu. Now they came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as part of a larger delegation of pagans who came to perform Hajj. They did not tell them about their intention. They did not tell them about their plan to meet and pledge to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now they told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Medina or Yathrib is ready. We are ready to accept you. So we're talking about the Hijjah of the 12th year of the Ba'tha of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Less than 4 months later, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would migrate to them and join them in Yathrib, which from now on would change its name to Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, the enlightened city, which was enlightened with the appearance and with the arrival of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But now let's look at the terms of the second agreement, the second bay'ah of Aqaba in the 12th year of the Ba'tha of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember, in the 11th year, it was all personal issues, not to associate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to steal, not to lie, not to kill, not to commit adultery, all individual behavioral things. But now we are beyond that behavioral thing, the individual thing. Now we're talking about a communal thing. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them, would you be willing to take me and protect me and defend me until I deliver my message? And let me tell you in advance, you're going to earn the enmity and the hatred of most of the Arabs around you, to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west. You are going to be shunned by these tribes, and not only by these, but probably also within your own communities, there are people who are going to hate my arrival. Would you be willing to take me and to sacrifice for protecting me? And they told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what we're offering is that we're going to protect you from what we protect our families, our spouses, and our children, our property. We're going to defend you as if you were one of us. And the Prophet ﷺ insisted on making them understand the consequences of this agreement. So now they're asking, in a previous setting probably, or in one of the lectures on Islamic Source, we talked about 2 different types of contracts. One is called a transactional contract, and one is called a relational contract. These are basically the 2 major types of contracts, or 2 major types of agreements. So if you want to buy a car, for example, you go and inspect the car. If you like the car that you're going to buy, the seller is going to ask you, how much are you going to pay? So there's going to be an exchange value. Money for the car, or money for a house, or something for these goods. So the companions, or this group of people from Yathrib, Al-Madinah Al-Munawwara, these 72 people, they asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what if we fulfill our promise to you? What are we going to get in return? Again, they're thinking in a transactional thing. We give you our protection, We give you our support. What do we get in return? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Jannah. I have nothing to offer you but paradise. And they said, we agree to these terms. That's exactly what we're looking for. And that was a blessed covenant between the Prophet ﷺ and these 72 delegates, 72 men and 2 women. The Prophet ﷺ asked the 72 men to select from among them 12 delegates or representatives to confirm this pledge with the Prophet ﷺ. So they selected 12 of their leaders to basically shake hands with the Prophet ﷺ and to confirm this agreement. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now revealed to the Prophet ﷺ that Quraysh ultimately are going to try to terminate the life of the Prophet ﷺ because they are hearing about his attempt to export Islam out of Mecca. So they want this not to happen. They do not want any second base for Islam. They can control Mecca, but they cannot guarantee being able to control anywhere outside of Mecca. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam the attempts of Quraysh to conspire against him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَإِذْ يَمْكُرُ بِكَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِيُثْبِتُوكَ أَوْ يَقْتُلُوكَ أَوْ يُخْرِجُوكَ وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. That these people from Quraysh are conspiring against you to injure you or to kill you or to expel you and exile you out of your homeland. And they're plotting, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is counter-plotting, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best plotter. Now, to terminate the Meccan part of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is an era, or this is a phase of the da'wah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where the Muslims were not allowed to carry any weapons. They were not allowed to fight back, even if they are harassed, if they are attacked, if they are discriminated against by the pagans and the non-believers. They were not allowed to fight back. Then, now, in preparation for the new era, with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrating to Al-Madinah al-Munawwara and establishing his state sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the new rules for the new phase. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير الذين أخرجوا من ديارهم بغير حق إلا أن يقولوا ربنا الله ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لهدمت صوامع وبيع وصلوات ومساجد يذكر فيها اسم الله كثيرا ولا ينصرن الله من ينصره إن الله قوي عزيز. The mere translation of the ayat that come in Surah Al-Hajj, which is basically, these are the ayat that start officially the Medina period, and the scholars of Quran say that these ayat were revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on his way from Mecca to Medina. After he had departed from Mecca, on his way to Al-Madinah al-Munawwara, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the believers who have been oppressed for so long have been now authorized to fight back and to respond in kind. If they are fought, they should fight back. If they are harassed, they should respond with harassment of those who are harassing them. So now they're going to be on equal footing. To conclude, inshallah, with that, let's see why for the first 13 years of the Ba'athah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were the Muslims not allowed to fight back. Why they were commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to abstain from fighting back and to kafful yad, which means keep your hands off any weapons, control your temper, absorb any attacks against you, and do not fight back. The mere reason for that is it's a character builder. Those who can control their own temper, those who can control their own emotions and not release them at the first sign of aggression, these are the ones who are going to be able later on to release these emotions only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not for their own selves. If they were allowed to respond to violence with violence from day one, things would have been confused. Things would have been mixed. Are we doing that for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are we doing that for self defense or revenge? Are we doing that because we want to get our revenge from our enemies? No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them, you control your temper, you control your anger for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you have not been allowed to fight back yet. But now, once they move to the new land, once they have a state with all the elements of the state, now they have the right to fight back and to defend themselves and to return power with power, to return attacks with counterattacks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them to do so. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam loved Mecca al-Mukarramah so much, and on his way out of Mecca al-Mukarramah, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked back and said, talking to Mecca, that you are the most beloved land to me. You are the land where I was born. You are the land where I grew up, where I had all my memories, when I married for the first time, where I had my beloved wife, Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha, where my children were born. So this is the most familiar land to me and most beloved land to me. And were it not that your people kicked me out, I would have never left voluntarily. So his heart, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was attached to Makkah al-Mukarramah, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching him and teaching us that the attachment should be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to anything else, not to family, not to houses, not to belongings, not to trade, not to friends, not to memories. The attachment is only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam some good news, that ultimately and eventually you will go back to this land, but in a different condition and different situation. You're getting out of this land chased and kicked out and persecuted. You will come back to this land as a conqueror and as a ruler and as the one with the upper hand. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, إِنَّ الَّذِي فَرَضَ عَلَيْكَ الْقُرْآنَ لَرَادُّكَ إِلَى مَعَادٍ. The one who has given you the Quran and prescribed it to you is going to return you back to your homeland. When would that happen? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not tell the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam under what conditions. That was not given at that time, but it's enough that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam a safe, glorious, honorable return to Mecca, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam knew that eventually this is going to happen one day. So inshallah, we're going to stop here. I know that we probably used all of our time today. Yeah, I had a reminder 5 minutes ago or so that we had 2 minutes left. So inshallah, we're going to pause here bi'idhnillah, and we're gonna pick it up next time with the ayat that were revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on his way from Mecca al-Mukarramah to Al-Madinah al-Munawwarah, and that glorious trip where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was accompanied by his greatest companion, Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned some of the details of that trip in the Quran, in Surah At-Tawbah. So this basically, that's what we're going to start with, inshallah, next time we meet, bi'idhnillah. Jazakallah khairan. And if anyone has any questions or comments or any contribution, intellectual contribution, inshallah, I'll be glad to listen to it, bi'idhnillah. Jazakallah khairan.
Great, inshallah. The next class is out again 2 weeks from now, which is basically February 21st. That's confirmed, Dr. Ihab, inshallah. And then we will do another 5 set of the Islamic source material.
Inshallah. Right now, at least we know that we are around the end of the Mecca period of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And inshallah, next time we're going to start the part of the last 10 years of the life, the blessed life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Al-Madinah Munawwarah. And there's a lot of Quran that was revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Al-Madinah Munawwarah. Just to give you a heads up about the major difference between the part of the Quran that was revealed in Makkah al-Mukarramah versus the one that was revealed in Al-Madinah Munawwarah. In Makkah al-Mukarramah, it was predominantly talking about articles of faith. It was talking about history and stories of previous nations to support the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and support his companions. A large part of it also was dedicated to the individual responsibility and the moral behavior of the Muslims that was given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions in Mecca al-Mukarramah to build their character. Now they're going to be ambassadors of Islam in Al-Madinah al-Munawwara. Now they're going to, for the first time, interact with other ideologies, with other faiths. They're going to face wars from the outside, from the non-believers. So how to respond to all of these issues? And then they're going to have a society, and the society has a code of law, which includes matters of civil discourse and civil life within the household, within the community. So how to buy and sell, how to borrow, how to pay back, how to marry, how to divorce, how to give inheritance, how to, all of these detailed issues about the daily life of the Muslims in a state. Now that they have a state in Al-Madinah al-Munawwara, the details about all of these are going to be revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in these last 10 years of his blessed life in Al-Madinah al-Munawwara.
Okay. Jazakallah khair again, everyone, for joining in promptly, and inshallah we'll see you back in 2 weeks' time.
Inshallah Rabbil Alameen بإذن الله. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Bismillah-ir-Rahman-ir-Raheem. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر